This podcast is not sponsored or supported by any business or organization. The views reflected on these podcast episodes are my own. Please be aware I am not a medical expert, travel agent, or any other kind of expert. Hey everyone, welcome to the Eat, Explore, Love podcast. I'm Ashley. This podcast is based off of my blog of the same name, Eat, Explore, Love. It talks about the unique challenges in traveling around the world when you have celiac disease. Due to sort of popular demand, I decided to also record a podcast to delve a little deeper into my travels and the lessons learned along the way. And we're back for another episode of Eat, Explore, Love, the podcast. On my trip to Salzburg, I got to explore a little bit more of the city than I did on my day trip from a cruise I took a few years ago. Got to learn my imagination is absolutely incredible, powerful, and special. Here's to another episode of Eat, Explore, Love. Okay, as per usual, I apologize in advance for all the pronunciations of the restaurants I'm about to explain. Die Weiss, I think is how it's pronounced. Go to hieatexplorelove.com if you want to see how it's written out. It's a typical traditional Austrian restaurant, and the staff was incredibly kind and accommodating for gluten-free meals. And they had a gluten-free menu. The Heart of Joy was an incredible experience, and they were willing to do whatever I needed to have the best experience possible for my breakfast. It was a great spot before going on my tours. Ludwig had a great burger and milkshake here. Well, X-nay on the great for the burger. The milkshake was great, but it filled me up enough for lunch, and I was able to keep moving. The staff wasn't the friendliest from my memory, but I got the meal that I needed and the energy to go about my day, and it was a gluten-free burger, so it is what it is. Cafe Bazaar was a pretty expensive breakfast place, but had some gluten-free options when breakfast options in the city was limited. L'Osteria is an Italian restaurant in Austria, which it wasn't my favorite, but if all else fails, it has gluten-free options. All right, here we go with my pronunciation. Augustiner Braugestoff Krimperlstatter. Go to eatexplorelove.com, guys. It was a really good Austrian restaurant that were able to accommodate my gluten allergy. And Sternbrau was another decent option for Austrian food. So in Salzburg, they have a lot of good gluten-free options for Austrian food. For activities. Now, I did do a free walking tour. It wasn't my favorite, so I'm not going to recommend it. But the two tours, or the one tour I did do that I will recommend, is the Sound of Music tour. I booked it through Get Your Guide, and it was totally awesome. I would recommend, though, going with friends that are willing to have a good time, not be so uptight, and are willing to sing along and be silly. It was a really good time. I enjoyed it a lot and got to see a lot more destinations than I thought I would at the filming locations. So I'm not a museum person, but Mozart's Birthplace Museum was a really cool, different museum, and I really recommend that everybody go and check that out. It does have a little bit of a cost, but you're getting to see what a house setup would be like from the 1700s. You're getting to see different artifacts of the time and learn a little bit more about Mozart, and it has a really great, I don't know what you would call it because exhibition doesn't seem to be the right word, but a really great setup where you get to see how composition actually works and what it means to be a composer. So definitely recommend going, and it's good for all ages. So the lesson for this week is talking about imagination. And when I was growing up, I have such a vivid imagination. I could put myself right back there in that time of my life where I would go to my grandparents' house, and they lived in a 2-story house with a basement, and I would go up to the second floor, and they had this big, huge bedroom up there, and they had a little TV with the VHS player. And yes, I'm that old that I grew up with VHS tapes. And The Sound of Music had 2 VHS tapes, and I would take my little fingers and I would put it into the VHS player, press play, sit down on the floor and look up at the little TV, and because they had the TV and then they'd had like a little rolly thing that they put the TV on. So I would sit in front of it and I was mesmerized and transported to a different time. That's where I fell in love with musical theater. That's where I fell in love with music. The Nazi stuff all went over my head, not gonna lie. But I thought the locations were the most beautiful locations I had ever seen in my life. And I think that's where I fell in love with traveling. I wanted to go to these places, and it all started with The Sound of Music. And getting to go there, it was just as beautiful as my imagination thought it was going to be. It lived up to everything. I thought all of Europe looked like The Sound of Music, and it was very disappointing to me when it didn't. But getting to go to Salzburg and it actually looking like it was supposed to, of what my imagination made it feel like, was incredibly powerful. And again, the power of imagination. As I was getting to go through all these places, I was transported back to being the little girl that I was, sitting in front of my grandparents' little TV with the rolly thing underneath it and playing those VHS tapes and living every minute for it. I think having a great memory is so important, and so many people have tried to tell me that my memories aren't real, and I'm like, no, I know every detail of what that memory was. And I think on this trip I learned my brain and what I'm able to remember and what I'm able to piece together and imagine for myself is probably the most important thing that I have been able to do in that, and that I had it happen to me right when I came back to the United States. The second conversation I had was how my memory didn't serve me correctly. And I didn't tolerate that response because I know what I know, and I have faith in myself like I've never had before. And I've seen the power of what my imagination and what my memories and my brain can do. And I'm never going to let anybody tell me otherwise. So that was a really powerful thing. And to this day, The Sound of Music is still one of my favorite movies ever. And I keep it precious. I only watch it maybe once a year because I want to keep it as a favorite movie. And as a film student, I still think it's so incredibly awesome what they were able to do at that time. And it's such a great way of storytelling. And not to sound like an old lady, but they just don't make movies like that anymore. Do I feel the city is safe for those with celiac? Yes. My favorite place to eat, the Heart of Joy. Favorite memory from the experience? Obviously, the Sound of Music tour. Is this a city to vacation to or live in? I think like a day or 2 day trip. So not like a lengthy vacation, but I also wouldn't be able to live there. It's such a small city and there's not much to do. So I think it's a great little place to go and visit. I think, is this a place to relax or be active? I think you can relax. How are the people? Incredibly kind. I loved Salzburg. Thank you for joining me. See you next time. Thank you for joining me this week for all the fun journeys and lessons learned on my big adventure called life. For more information on the different cities discussed, check out the blog posts on hieatexplorelove.com, posted every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you have any questions or fun stories to share, feel free to reach out at hieatexplorelove@gmail.com. Until next week, remember to eat well, explore the world, and love yourself. See you next time. This episode is produced, scripted, and edited by me, Ashley. Special thanks to Sarah Mientka.